Welcome to the first episode of the autoX show. Now sit back, buckle up, because we're putting you in the driver's seat of the most exciting industry in the country. Right, without further ado, this week on the autoX show, Ishan heads to Bhubaneswar to check out Hyundai's brand new Santro. We sit down with Steffen Knapp, Director of Volkswagen Passenger Cars India, to find out more about their future plans. And I head to Italy to drive this. So we're here today in the hallowed grounds at Ferrari's home in Maranello, specifically at the Fiorano test track in Maranello, to talk about speed and the 488 Pista specifically, because Pista stands for racetrack, and that's why we're at Fiorano. At the front, the Pista gets a carbon fiber bonnet and bumper. You get the option of a set of carbon fiber rims. At the rear, there's a carbon fiber spoiler as well as a carbon fiber bumper and diffuser. The defining feature of the Pista is its rather conspicuous S-duct in the front of the car. This is a Formula One derived Ferrari patented technology that's being used on a road car for the first time. Of course, all this wizardry will cost you 4.91 crores to be exact. So the Pista is the latest in a long line of very special V8 Ferraris. The 360 Challenge Stradale, the 430 Scuderia, the 458 Speziale, and now the 488 Pista. Now 488 is fast enough, but this one has 50 more horsepower, 10 more Nm of torque. It does 0 to 100 in 2.85 seconds versus a fairly mediocre 3 seconds for the 488 GTB. So why am I standing here talking to you? Let's get in and drive this baby. Right, so we are starting off in the hills around Maranello, and it is an absolutely beautiful day. Right, some of the numbers first. 3.9 liters twin turbo V8 that produces 711 brake horsepower, 770 Nm of torque, 0 to 100 in 2.85 seconds, 0 to 200 in 7.6 seconds. That is unbelievable. And you can feel it every time you so much as touch the accelerator pedal. The second thing that strikes you when you get into a hypercar like this is the absolute immediacy of all the responses. You tap the accelerator pedal and it lunges forward. You touch the brakes and it absolutely comes to an immediate stop. The engine is just unbelievable. The engine is turbocharged, but you wouldn't know it other than a little bit of a whoosh from the turbo. The response is absolutely instant. The response is absolutely immediate. The revs build to a crescendo. There's linear response, and it's completely immediate. I mean, it is phenomenal and completely addictive. The speed is instant and instantly addictive. Heroin has absolutely nothing on this car. The steering is nicely weighted, it's sharp, it's immediate, but it's not too sharp. You don't turn in and then have to second guess yourself because you've turned in and the car is darting into a corner. It's very progressive, it's very well balanced. By the way, this car is 90 kilos lighter than the standard GTB. It's got these massive paddles on the steering column here, and I much prefer them on the steering column rather than on the steering wheel itself, because you always know where they are. So what about this cabin? It is extremely driver focused, as you would imagine. The seats are really firm, they hold you in place. The 4-point harness, even more so. I'm sitting here staring at a massive yellow analog DAC right in the center, which is also addictive because you just want to send the needle going northwards all the time. Absolutely everything is driver focused to give you the best lap time on a racetrack. And to that extent, obviously the ride is very, very firm. You feel absolutely every pebble, every undulation, everything on the road. And if it's absolute performance that you're after, then you have come to the right place. You have certainly come to the right place. Right, so that's it for the road. Let's hope the weather holds, because we're heading to the racetrack next. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The sun is out, track is dried up for the most part. We're looking good. So the internals of this engine are 50% new. Now the engine that it's based on is no slouch either. International Engine of the Year winner in 2016 and 2017. This has just won International Engine of the Year in 2018. This is much better. Jesus, what the way it picks up speed. The levels of grip, the power, the brakes. It is addictive. Full power on the brakes. Car goes light up the crest. Jesus, the speed is so accessible. The brakes are so strong. I've not even tried CT off because I'm having so much fun in sport. Run it wide, carry the speed. We hit the limiter there. Brake. Woo! And that's my cue. Box and slow. What a machine. What an absolutely addictive speed demon machine. Oh my dear Lord. That was everything that you could possibly hope it to be and more. Unbelievable. I feel like Vettel at the end of one of his Grand Prix victories. Grazie mille, grazie ragazzi, molto bene. And now for my absolute ultimate Ferrari fanboy moment, I have to do it. Forza Ferrari. Welcome back to the autoX show. Now the Volkswagen Group has reset its strategy in the country with the India 2.0 plan. We sit down with Steffen Knapp to talk shop and find out more about their future plans.
We're in conversation today with Steffen Knapp. He's the brand director for Volkswagen India. Welcome, Steffen.
Hi. It's a pleasure for me.
Thank you. India 2.0 is a big plan that you've recently announced. In the medium term, how do you see Volkswagen's presence in India?
It's part of a global strategy what we defined over the last months. Yeah. So we as a team gave ourselves a clear vision. We want to become a sustainable brand with minimum 3% market share in the next 5 years. And if you have this compelling vision, obviously you have to define your mission and you have to define your 6 strategic priorities you're working on. And part of this is to ask what are the necessary products in order to be able to achieve this, because it's not just coming because I'm saying we're going to make 3% market share. So you see, you have to see this holistically. So India 2.0 is part of our global strategy to get enlarging our footprint here in India, yeah, and to get one step ahead where we are today.
SUVs today are the need, especially in the Indian market, worldwide too. So when can we expect to see a competitor from Volkswagen to say the Creta or the Brezza, the volume segments in SUV?
I just wanted to answer you that we're already having an SUV in our range here, which is one of the most successful SUVs in the world, with more than 4 million sold, the Tiguan. But our plan is to launch an A0 SUV in the time frame 2020-2021. That's when we are coming with a product you will love, fantastic product, with absolutely Indian style and content, because it's going to be developed, engineered in India, in an own development center, which we're right now building, with up to 4,000 to 5,000 engineers, local engineers coming from India, being directed by an Indian, in order to be absolutely appropriate at the right level in terms of design, package, features, to be here on a winning streak.
The one problem that you might face is that how do you sustain Volkswagen quality levels at a price that Indian customers find acceptable? I mean, that's a bit of a tricky issue.
I don't see this as a tricky issue. Volkswagen has 3 major values in its DNA. That's quality, that's safety, and that's fun to drive. Yeah? So that drives our brand. Yeah? And we will never dilute on quality, never. What we are doing here is just applying local necessary standards. I give you an example. Our cars, for instance, our cars we are selling at the moment, you can drive on an autobahn at 200 kilometers per hour, and the mirrors are not starting to vibrate. And this standard applies all around the world. I've been living now here for almost 1.5 years now. I never managed to drive more than 200 kilometers per hour. So that is a standard which is not necessary for India. Does this mean that we are deteriorating, diluting our quality? No. It's just to making something more appropriate for the local situation.
The next 2 years, 2019, 2020, till the India 2.0 comes into play, are going to be a bit of a challenge for you as far as sales are concerned. So how do you envision sort of bridging that time between the new products and now?
First of all, you grow with challenges, yeah, and India is a challenging country in principle, yeah, so we are definitely not worried. There are a couple of things what you need to do. First of all, we have to prepare and relentlessly implement our strategic pillars, what we defined, in order to be able to go to the next level. That's the first bit, yeah, and there's a lot of things to do. Yeah. Secondly, on the product side, there's a lot of potential still. Don't forget that, for instance, now, today as we speak, 95% of my cars I sell to first-time buyers, or first-time buyers for the Volkswagen brand. So only around maximum 10%, depending on car line, are existing customers repurchasing a Volkswagen. So I'm conquesting a lot of customers still with my existing portfolio. If I speak today about Polo, we sold more Polos this year than last year. Yeah, so the car is still pretty interesting, and on top of it, we're selling it at a ticket price which is much above our competition. So 38% of our sales, what we do today, is GT TSI. So the TSI technology, for instance, gives us a lot of opportunities in the next upcoming years, what we can do with that. So what we are going to do is we're going to strengthen our products further. So like we did with the 1.0 liter MPI, which we just recently launched, we are going to launch new features. We're going to launch new fabrics, we're going to launch new colors, new alloys and stuff, new stuff to the customers, like action models, which is a value proposition and which is interesting to them, and which will keep us always at the right level where we need to be. Yeah. Secondly, don't forget we did commit ourselves to launch 5 new products in 2016, and we did exactly that. We have the Ameo, we have the Behl, we have the GTI, we launched the Tiguan, and we launched the Passat. And Tiguan and Passat are not more than a year here. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not going to be easy, I know this, yeah. But by focusing our efforts on the right opportunity, I'm pretty sure that we come more, if not much, much stronger out of these next 2 years into the 2020-21 plan.
Also, the Indian government is pushing on electric vehicles a lot. Do you think there's anything from the MEB architecture that we could see in India in the potential future?
Well, never say never, yeah. I think that is the advantage if you are working for such a big company like us, and a company which is completely focused on electrification. So we want to make electrification affordable to the mass. What does it mean for India? I think in India we need, like in other countries, first to build up the infrastructure and come up with a really framework, where does this automotive business is going to. What do we want to have in the future? It's not only about saying 2030 all our cars will be electrified. It's about really what is the philosophy behind and how serious do I take it. I know the examples, fortunately, because I was responsible for Scandinavia for a long time. They are really taking it to the extent where it needs to be. They give this to a lane for electrified cars only, so they can pass. They have parking spots for free. They have electric energy for free. So they're really going after this. Does it mean we need to do this in India completely? I don't think. It needs to be a mixture, but it needs to be a clear plan, a clear route. Because without subsidies, without incentivizing, I don't think that the value for money proposition is able to be achieved in frame of a positive business case. Personally, I think it's coming. I think India is incredibly fast if they want. I always mention this former British ambassador who said India is a functioning anarchy, and it's functioning. Yeah, you do it in a complete different way, but it's coming. Yeah, and I think the level of expertise and educated people in this country and the dynamic and the entrepreneurship dynamic also here will lead to the fact that it will come very, very fast, faster than we expect. But I'm not worried. We are there, and we can follow that.
Thank you, Steffen. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Now, the Hyundai Santro revolutionized the Indian small car market when it was first introduced 20 years ago. There's an all-new one, and Ishan's been driving it.
When it comes to successful products, their success is something that can make them a brand in itself. Take iPhones for example. Apple makes a million other things, but the iPhones are the biggest selling product and a brand in itself. I think the same applies for the Santro for Hyundai. It was the product that introduced the company to India in 1998, was an instant success, and in itself it holds a certain brand value, a certain sub-brand if you call it. So 20 years from the day when they originally launched the Santro, the second generation Santro is here, and we are driving it today to see if it can match and replicate the success of the original and what it can do for Hyundai in India. When it comes to the design, I think the Santro is slightly similar to the original. It's a design that polarizes opinion. I've heard people who absolutely love the design, and I've heard a few who absolutely hate it. I think it stems from the fact that people, a few of them at least, still want something that looks like the original Santro. That's not going to happen. It's been 20 years, companies move on, designers move on, design languages move on. So what we have here is the new Santro. I quite like the front grille. I think the wide, it's slightly oversized, but that's in fashion right now. And I think it gives the car, especially a small car, quite a bit of presence. What I don't like is these lines in the side of the car, both at the front and the back. I think they're just doing too much. I mean, it's slightly a case of trying too hard. It's not required. It doesn't really add anything for me. But at the same time, on the rear door, the slight indentation that they've created, slightly larger glass house, looks nice, at least gives it an interesting character and profile when you view it from the side. Overall, it's a car that catches your attention. It's a car, especially in this green shade, that really gets your eye, and I think a majority of people are going to quite like how it looks. The interiors of the new Santro are going to be quite familiar to those of you who've owned a i10, and it has to be. Well, it's based on the same platform, but what you get as a result is lots of room. It's got a big glass house, there's lots of headroom, there's decent leg space at the rear, but it's essentially a four-seater because 5 adult passengers in a car is going to be a tight fit. So I think 4 adults is probably the perfect combo. What you also get is the similar gear lever that falls very easily to hand. The dashboard quality, the plastics quality, it's quite good. It's very well equipped. We've got a touchscreen with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. The air conditioning is claimed to be the best in class. We are yet to test that, but we don't dispute the claim. And just as a matter of practicality, it's got lots of cubby holes, spaces to keep your stuff, bottle holders. I think in its segment, for the price that it comes, the Santro is clearly a car that has the best quality, the best fit and finish, and of course the most equipment, as you would expect from a Hyundai. When it comes to driving the Santro, I think there are quite a few things that work very well. The engine is basically the same engine that was in the i10. So it's a 1.1 litre. The manual transmission is also almost the same, but they've tweaked the engine and the transmission. So the engine is now Euro 6 ready because those regulations come into place in April 2020. Also, what is interesting with the Santro is that it's got an AMT, which is Hyundai's first. And what they've done, I think, I was talking to the engineers at Hyundai India, and they said that they tried all the hydraulically actuated AMTs and they weren't happy with how it shifts and how quickly it upshifts, the lag in shifting, which is a common problem. So they've developed their own in-house electrically actuated AMT, which I have to say works quite well. Is it perfect? No, there's still a slight bit of lag, but it's the best AMT that I've driven by far. The upshifts are quite quick, the downshifts are even quicker, the manual control works well, and I think at that price, which is about 5 lakh something ex showroom for an AMT version, if you're looking for an urban runabout, the Santro makes a lot of sense because the gearbox is not frustrating to drive. The engine's quite free revving, it's quite peppy, it's got about 10 kilos of torque, which is quite good. It's a light car, so it moves quite well. The big glass house works, and like I said earlier, the space, I mean, you have a feeling of space even though it's got majorly black interiors. You see this lovely neon highlighting that's only on this neon green color, but it's quite spacious. The air conditioning works well. The suspension, of course, that's something that Hyundai has now cracked. Their cars are not too soft. They have ride comfort, but they also handle very well. The same is with the Santro. It's got quite nice ride comfort. The dynamics are quite balanced. Even at high speeds, even at 3-digit speeds, the car feels quite stable. There's no issue there. That way, with the interior space, with the decent design, with a 253-litre boot, class-leading equipment, of course. Safety-wise, they've also got it quite covered. All variants have a single airbag and ABS with EBD as standard. Yes, they could have done better there, but I mean, I think the cost is a factor. Upper variants of the Santro have 2 airbags along with ABS and EBD. The pricing between 4 lakhs and 5.6-ish ex showroom. I think the Santro makes a lot of sense, and in this segment where the Celerio and the other competitors are quite old, I think it's going to do well, not just because it's a good product, but because of the novelty of owning, 1, a brand new product, 2, it's a Hyundai Santro after all.
Well, that's all the time we have for you this week. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you same time next weekend. Next week on the AutoX show, I head to the US to try out BMW's all-new X5 SUV. Jared kicks up some dirt at the Sambar Lake in Rajasthan astride the V-Strom 650, Suzuki's latest middleweight motorcycle. Now, it's no secret it can get pretty crazy out there on the roads, so remember, stay safe, buckle up, and always wear your helmets. We'll see you again, same time next week.